Hatala, inam wanikwas kusnim kasknua, soyapo wanikwas Stacia morphine, tots pa'ain. What I said is good afternoon. My name is One Who Takes Care of Water, also known as Stacia Morphine. Welcome. I am owner and operator of Nez Perce Tourism in Nimipu country, and it is my privilege and honor to visit with each of you today to also encourage you to get involved in cultural tourism in your area, in your nation, and in your region. We have a big effect, and it's a positive ripple effect that comes when we work with our guests, more importantly, our communities within our nation, and it strengthens that relationship with each other. So next, I would like to go ahead and introduce Leanne Campbell, and I would like you to tell us a little bit about who you are and who you're representing today, Leanne.
Okay. Yes, Hestra squeetstem, he squeezed qua quiltza, chintel quastituunch, chinshenin qua henseguitin, chelftis quaqua el qua chine, chinlimt, in quaqua el. I said good morning in the Coeur d'Alene language. We're a tribe located in the northern panhandle of Idaho. It's a Salish language, and my introduction for myself, my name is Leanne Campbell. I'm a member of the Coeur d'Alene tribe here, and I work at the Coeur d'Alene Casino Resort Hotel and Cultural Tourism, where I serve as a cultural tourism coordinator. And I've been working with the Coeur d'Alene Casino for about a year. It'll be a year next month.
Wonderful. Congratulations on your 1 year anniversary next month in February. To go ahead and start off the webinar series today, I would like to encourage myself and each of you to remember who you are each day and to acknowledge that territorial homeland that our ancestors once occupied and who we still occupy and visit periodically. But I want to get into depth about who I come from specifically on my grandfather's side. My grandfather, Larry Green, comes from the Redbird Band. So at any given time, Nimipu, Nez Perce, had 9 or more bands of people at any given time. And so Redbird, he was responsible for the Salmon River, Snake River area. And you can see that Lizzie Cayuse, she comes from the Redbird Band as well. And it was noted years and years and years ago in the Spokane, Washington Spokesman Review that Lizzie Cayuse, an ancestor of mine, was a Nimipu spokeswoman. And so, again, she and I come from the Redbird side on my grandfather, Larry Green's side. Now, on my grandmother's side, you will see a photo of a Nimipu spiritual leader, and his name was Pile of Clouds. And I come from him on my grandmother's side. And Pile of Clouds was responsible for the Snake to the Alpawe to Moscow Pullman area. So that gives you an idea of the responsibilities and the territories different bands of people Nimipu were responsible for. But also in the Nimipu creation story or our origin story, which every other nation has, we have a story of worship. And Coyote, he's our trickster, he's our storyteller, he's a spirit. He's kind of an all above jack of trades. And probably every nation has their own version of Coyote as well. But during our creation and origin story, at the end, after Coyote slays the monster and tears out the heart of the monster, Coyote tells his brother Fox to go ahead and fetch him some water. And Coyote washes his hands with the heart of the monster and the blood droplets. And he washes his hands in a way, and he puts them together. And as the water droplets fall from his hands onto the earth, Coyote is showing Fox and us a great lesson. And with that, what he does is the droplets of water and blood hit the earth. And that created the human beings. It created the Nimipu, the Coeur d'Alene, all of these tribes and people that are here today. But with that, he also makes a motion of bringing 5 core elements together. And those five forces are water, earth, air, light, and spirit of the monster. And all five of these elements is how we as human beings are made. And if we are to take or remove any one of these things, whether it's water we can survive 5 to 7 days without water. Air we can survive for 3 minutes. Earth sustains everything. It's intact with everything. So without earth, we die. Um, Without the light, I mean, when it comes down and strikes the earth, it has water and air in it. So also without light, will no longer be able to sustain ourselves. And with the spirit, the fifth element, there's a spirit in every living thing on earth. And without that spirit, we will die. So this creation story that we share and that we carry, it's not only the creation of the Nimipu people, which is sacred, but so are these five elements that we learn from through this Genesis coyote story that we hold and we share all the time to our guests, to one another. So our coyote stories could be labeled as a sacred secret form, but they're also a way to share information. And so being able to apply these five forces or these five resources, it is important for us to do that to remain alive. So going into sacred versus secret versus commonly known and widely shared, that is something that I took with the utmost responsibility to make sure that I was not disrespecting my nation at all in any form. I know sometimes the ecological knowledge and information that we do share is absolutely sacred and absolutely should stay within our people. But there's also a wide range of things that are commonly known or encouraged to openly share. And so one of the things I wanted to focus on was some spheres of influence specifically for Nimipu country. And if you look at this slide here, you'll notice that I have a list of kind of four different things that Nimipu elders helped me identify. So our four major spheres of influence are the Lolo Trail, Celilo Falls, Hells Canyon, Yellowstone Park. And so inside each of these, you will notice that the Nimipu people aren't primarily the land managers of each of these places, but we do have a heavy influence on our power sites, our power places, our hunting, our fishing, our gathering, our trade sites. And so these are places that we are connected to in a very sacred way. So there's a difference between sharing sacred knowledge and sharing experiences. And there's a very fine line that I would like to encourage anybody who is involved in cultural tourism or is thinking about getting involved in cultural tourism. This is something that you will absolutely have to do before you open your doors, is doing that internal assessment on, where are some of our power places? Where are our spheres of influence? And what is that information that we should absolutely not share? So by looking at the Nez Perce Trail, that is managed by the U.S. Forest Service. And every year we collaborate with several other folks in our region, and including the Chief Joseph Foundation Trail, the My Sweet Appaloosa. In Moscow, there's the Appaloosa Horse Foundation. And we go on the conflict or the Flight of 1877 trail. So we go back on registered Appaloosa horses, and we go and follow the footsteps of the Nimipu people during the 1877 flight, starting in Wallowa and ending up at Bear's Paw. But that trail is a trail of sadness. It's a trail of plenty of victories. But the people that visit it today, both tribal and non-tribal people, they have the spiritual connection to it. And it's a great way to utilize some of those power places in a respectful way through this trail system that we utilized historically for several different things, but that we can still also maximize on not disrespecting who we are as a nation and telling our story from our perspective. And there's also an audio tour that comes with the Nez Perce Trail that many of our tribal members worked on for years. And Sandy McFarland, she's with this particular outfit now, and she's a great representative and tool for me to utilize at any given moment if I need information. But having those indigenous people in those places inside the federal government systems is absolutely important. It's important that we are equally balanced with gathering our traditional knowledge and living our traditional ways, but also having a foot straddled in today's society. And maybe that does mean going out and getting your education, or maybe that does mean attending trainings that are available to us for free, similar to what IDRS offers with the ACORN project. But making sure that we are connected to all of our resources at all time, not only internal resources, but external resources that will help ignite and enhance some of our cultural tourism opportunities that we might have. The next one I would like to talk about a little bit is Celilo Falls. And so some of the folks that have joined us today might be also connected to the Celilo Falls if you are part of the Sahaptin or Pacific Northwest Plateau tribes. Celilo Falls is something that is very important to us as Nimipu, and Celilo means echo of falling water or sound of water upon the rocks. So we utilized Celilo Falls for over 15,000 years for fishing, trading, the exchange of foods, and it was one of our gathering sites. And it's no longer there because a big dam covers that area to help, of course, sustain for our electricity today. But those are places to us that are our major spheres of influence. Another one is Yellowstone National Historical Park. I mean, the National Historical Park was established by President Woodrow Wilson in about probably 80 years ago. And so we'll notice that the opportunity to utilize some of these places that are important to us, such as Yellowstone, the Nez Perce National Historical Park, and places like that, that we need to also be there sharing our own story from our perspective. The Lolo Trail is one of them as well. The National Park Service manages the Lolo Trail Pass, which gives us a direct access to the Bitterroot Mountains, our trade, hunting, and fishing routes. So this kind of gives you an idea of what you will also need to do if you haven't established a cultural tourism department or business as a sovereign person or a sovereign nation. I would highly like to encourage you to identify these spheres of influence so you can make sure that you respect your and protect your sacred and secret areas within your nation. We need to look at our past. We need to be able to be in the moment, to be present in the moment, to hear what our community is saying to us through this initiative. Are there concerns about specific things? Are people excited? A lot of the times I've noticed that folks in Nimipu country are split. A little bit more are excited about those who are not excited, but for good reason. And for those who aren't excited, are just looking and don't want to experience what we have in the past as far as trusting and providing friendships and peace with folks who in turn want to come and exploit our resources or take from us. Because Nimipu, we are a very giving people. We are a tribe that has a lot to offer as far as knowledge. I mean, let's face it, if we look at our traditional first foods, our plants, there's some very very powerful plants and knowledge that we hold with us today. But one of the important things for us to do within the community, and they can help, and that's the great thing about cultural tourism and your involvement, is you have absolutely got to have your community's buy-in. And you have to be able to be flexible for those concerns that come forth. And you have to also be able to provide that feedback that reassures the folks who may be doubting or maybe not want to do tourism for your company or for your region or for your nation, but to just really make sure that they know that their concerns are heard. So some cultural values, I mean, there's many cultural values that we can identify through each nation, but some of them are, reciprocity. healing, respect, compassion, sacredness. Of course, sacredness is a big one that I want to talk about today because we were able to do an internal assessment throughout my community. And I not only asked and had my elders participate, but I had children, youth, folks who have college degrees, folks who don't have college degrees. And a great way to access those people is through our general council. So each year we have two general councils where all of our Nez Perce Nimipu tribal members, descendants, and community members, we gather together and we discuss important issues and we talk about things that we want to shoot for. We make resolutions. We solve problems. There's a lot of things that we accomplish in these 2 or 3 days of our general council. So me knowing that there was going to be, great gatherings, I wanted to make sure that I got in touch with as many people as possible in which I was able to create this internal assessment from. And integrity and representation are also two big things that we want to make sure that we're valuing in terms of respect for our cultural tourism. But in the questionnaire and the feasibility study that I was able to put together, I had 4 categories. And in these categories, there were hundreds of questionnaires that went out. And what we gathered is there was some common themes. So some of those sacred places, which we'll stay away from, the sacred and the secret topics are things that we won't probably share as far as with our guests in Nez Perce Tourism. But those places that are sacred included some of those power places inside those spheres of influence. So we can always share those spheres of influence in those places, but not the specific power places, such as our Wayakin, where we find our Wayakin, where we would host and what specifically we do inside those ceremonies. So we have all kinds of different ceremonies here in Nimipu country, and those consist of our 7 drum, our first kill, our coming of age, our memorials and things like that. So maybe this isn't something that we would invite the general population to and per se sell. These are things that we would keep sacred and that we would keep within our communities and ensure that our elders and our young adults and our youth and those are keeping those strong. So those power places and those ceremonies are things that we decided that we'll kind of stay away from. Although a ceremony could also be called a powwow. A powwow is something that's open to the public. So that goes back down into the commonly known and widely shared category. So we were very strategic about what we did and what we accomplished through this questionnaire. But another thing that we wanted to highlight was sacred versus secret. And secret, we figured out through this information gathering that our unmarked burial grounds would be secret. And so, Old Joseph, he has a Nez Perce National Historical Park mark in which I went over to visit this weekend. I went down to Wallowa, Oregon and visited Old Joseph's grave site. And it's a marked burial ground. And the reason it's marked is because years ago, Old Joseph was almost 90 years old when he passed away near the Lostine River. And folks heard about his burial and they went and disturbed his grounds. There was items, there was his head, there was things that were taken. And so what the Nez Perce tribe and Nez Perce National Historical Park did is they decided to move his bones to a place that they could better manage. And so the unmarked burial grounds would be an example of secret places that we don't want to bring folks to. And also there's a very fine line in our first food and traditional medicine gathering places. Now that doesn't necessarily mean for secret that we can't talk about our first food, and maybe some of them are more important than others. Maybe folks already know about one of our first foods or more, and so we are able to help educate and invite folks to these things. But so for some of our traditional medicine gathering places, we decided as a nation, and I decided as a sovereign entrepreneur, that those are things that I would not want to exploit or perhaps take people to because of fear of exploitation. But it looks like I have a question that popped up on the screen. It says, from Lisa Davis, did you receive any opposition from elders or others in your community when you started your tourism business? If so, how did you overcome those objections and fears of abusing the culture? So yeah, there was My elders surprisingly were very encouraging. There's one that does have a little bit of speculation about the things that she thinks I'm sharing and selling, and I just continually ask for input, and I want my elders in my community to know that this company isn't mine, that it's ours, and even though I manage and own this company, that it is something that all of the Nimipu have access to. And we do have some nonprofit things that we share, some elder to youth mentorship things that we do that are for free, of course. But the main basis, as far as being able to overcome those objections and fear, is always reminding myself that this vision came through prophecy. So I'm not here for me. I'm being obedient to this prophecy that was carried out through people in my community that basically um, gave me this idea and this place within my society and my culture. So when I first started Nez Perce Tourism, I felt extremely inadequate. And I had to continually go back to that prophecy over my life that this is what I was meant to do. This is what I was built for. This is why I was born, was to come and start this company that will last for years. And so it's just it being able to effectively communicate at all times with my community and just make sure you have those checks and balances. So this internal feasibility study was one of those tools used to help me to better understand what some of those I guess, fears of my community would be. So, of course, some of the commonly known things about Nimipu are the Flight of 1877 and the treaties of 1855 and 1863. So those common things and widely shared things, such as, the number one thing I hear in my big groups is, tell me what you know about the Nez Perce, the Nimipu people. And the number one thing is Chief Joseph. And so we go into learning more characteristics and talking points about Chief Joseph. And a lot of people don't even know that there are two Chief Josephs, that there is an old Joseph who died in the Wallowa Valleys of a broken heart, and which I visited this weekend, and there's young Joseph. And young Joseph's the one that shared the famous surrender speech over at Bear's Paw, 20 miles from the Canadian border. And that's why so many folks know Chief Joseph, but also that he was never a war chief, that he was the people's chief. He was our peace chief. So just being able to go into specific details and attributes about these widely shared things, quote unquote, that even not only our guests, but our own people know, or for better terms, sometimes don't know. And another thing that they commonly associate with the Nez Perce Nimipu is the Appaloosa horse. So we can talk about, when we accrued the Appaloosa horse and how much it drastically changed our modes of transportation and our ways of life. So that was a big technology boost that we encountered when we did accrue the Appaloosa horse. But that kind of feasibility study with these four categories really helped me determine what information we could share and what information we should stay away from. So one of the things I would like you to all do is look on the map, and just from the U.S. National Park standpoint, look who is sharing your story. And I would highly recommend that you start working with them, if you're not already, immediately. So I work with the Nez Perce National Historical Park and have been since my 2 years of market research, because I know that the U.S. national parks have never been more popular than they are right now. So 2020, these numbers are increasing all over Indian country. So if you have access, or most likely you're going to be near a park, make sure that you're there also sharing that story from your perspective. Although I absolutely love my U.S. national park, not always is there a tribal member or a descendant or somebody who is there from that area who represents that nation well. So all the park rangers that I work with, either tribal or non-tribal, man, their hearts are wonderful. Their knowledge is vast, but that doesn't necessarily mean that's what the guests are looking for. Our guests want to authentically see and meet the people. They want to meet me. They want to meet the yous of your nation. So remember that, and look around at this map and look who's sharing your story. So the Nez Perce National Historical Park has several different sites, about 31 different sites within their territory. And it's important that we try and capitalize on those areas, and just to make sure that it looks like I have another question here. So does the national park share information about your tourism company? I'm wondering how to partner with them and advertise tourism services. So yes, Lisa, so I called a meeting with the superintendent, and I made sure that him and I were both working together, not only on internal projects and scheduling for our larger groups, but we work on sponsorship opportunities together. We've joined forces, and we'll go through this pretty intensely during tomorrow's session on collaborative partnerships and the importance of them. But we work very heavily on working with bringing groups in and maximizing the time that we have with the groups when they're there. So that's exactly what I did. Is I just got in touch with the superintendent of the Nez Perce National Historical Park. We had a few meetings, and ever since then, I mean, we're co-collaborating on several things. And I'm going to be hosting a few things there on site very soon, which takes just easy permitting, which sounds silly because it is the U.S. government, and there usually isn't such a word as, you know, easy permitting in the same sentence. But you know, it's doable, and they will really help enhance what you have going on, because they're going to believe in you. They want the us. They want the representatives of that nation to come and be part of these park services. And I haven't experienced anything otherwise so far. So I've been very blessed to be able to work with the Nez Perce National Historical Park, and even our surrounding tribes. I mean, the Coeur d'Alene tribe, they're phenomenal in knowing the importance of weaving together our manpower and our knowledge and providing an authentic experience for our guests who come from all over the world. So we're working on things continuously. I mean, I was just down there last month, providing some Nez Perce history and exhibitions for them up in Coeur d'Alene country. So that was nice. So one of the other things I just quickly want to touch on is during that sacred and secret analysis that we did, you'll notice that the traditional first food gathering places were off limits. But as far as hosting a dinner with the Nez Perce and inviting some of our elders to tell stories, or our historians like the Alan Pinkham seniors of the world to come in and provide that narrative and to serve a meal and break bread. So one of the things that we did is we hosted once a month dinner with the Nez Perce. And it was to my surprise that a lot of our local community members, both tribal and non-tribal, wanted to attend the dinner with the Nez Perce. And we hosted it over in Washington, in Clarkston, just across the bridge from Lewiston, and about 30 miles west of the Nez Perce Reservation. So that dinner included the pan-seared salmon with herb potatoes, celery, onions, mini fry breads, tossed salad with huckleberry dressing, huckleberry pie, water, and tea. But even this, to be very honest with you, gained a little bit of backlash. And where it gained backlash is in the way that it was presented to the public, in the form of media. So we have to be very careful by not saying what we're going to serve as the dinner, but what content we use inside that advertisement. And so one of the things that there was concern that was raised, and later on it was fine, but it was come and share, you know, the Nez Perce way of life. And our Nez Perce way of life is being able to, I mean, there's several ways of life. We don't have one set philosophy that we follow. You know, it's this way of life that we have and that we learn from and that we teach others. But some of the language that I used raised red flags with folks in my community. And so what I had to do is just basically go and listen to their concerns, and I had to alter some things. And through this process, we're going to have to do that. And we're never, ever going to be able to make everybody happy. That's the thing. But as long as you are respecting your Indian laws within your community and doing things with a good heart and a good way, I think the tourism businesses will be okay. And so the huckleberry pie, water, and tea, of course. So inside the entertainment of these dinner with the Nez Perce, which was the big draw, wasn't necessarily the foods that were being served, but the entertainment and the information that was shared. So we typically started out with our flag song. You know, we had our eagle staff. We brought in our colors. We brought in our dancers. We had a drum group, whether it was a full drum group or a hand drum group. But we had performers. Typically for Nimipu, for our women, we're the short fringe style of dancing, buckskin. And for our men, we're the duck and dive, so the round bustle style. So I would try to make sure that I had one female and one male represented at this dinner with the Nez Perce. Actually, at all of my events, I make sure I have that. Just so we can talk about the roles and responsibilities of men and women, and then talk about how beautifully blended together through these events. And they also love hearing our songs. Some people might say that, our duck and dive is very sacred to us. But that again is something that you'll have to hash out in the details of your assessment, because the duck and dive is also performed at powwows. And so maybe for your powwow etiquette, if that's something you decide to do, and that's a really good place to start cultural tourism in your community, is if you have a powwow. Maybe your surrounding community is non-tribal people, and the non-tribal folks are very intimidated by attending a free and open to the public powwow. What you do is you put together an etiquette list. You start advertising and marketing what you think a good price would be. Does it include dinner? Does it include transportation? So mine include a Nez Perce narrative and transportation to local powwows. And we have about 10 local powwows inside Nimipu country through all year long. We just had a sellout event at the New Year's Eve and Renegades powwow. And one of the neat things about that, since we're lightly touching on advertisement, is my local newspapers are seeing the value that this company brings, the diversity it brings to, say, a New Year's Eve. Come and share a New Year's Eve like you've never experienced before. Don't go along with a traditional wait up till midnight and kiss your loved one and watch the ball drop and go home. Create a memorable experience that you and your family can attend and to feel a part of, and that's attending this powwow. And so the powwow was from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. I had the majority of my group stayed till 10:30 because they weren't ready to go at 9. And I had one lady who stayed and helped. She came from California. She flew up from California, went directly to our tour. She stayed there till about 1:30 a.m. and helped the powwow committee clean up, and she left the next day. I mean, people want to be a part of who we are, and they understand that they can feel the power in the things that we share with them. And so those are just some of the examples of the internal assessments, sacred, secret, commonly known, and widely shared, that I wanted to briefly touch on. And again, there's a really fine line that shouldn't be crossed, but how are you going to know unless you ask? And so having your community involvement is something that's very important, and it's highly recommended and if you've already started a tourism company. So making sure that you have your checks and balances in place and that you have that approval. We do have a circle of elders that meets once a month with the Nimipu Nation. So if you have something like that, I would recommend starting there. And Jonelle Urout, she is the director of our NCDFI here in Nimipu country, and she was a great resource just to make sure that, hey, did you run it by the circle of elders? This is the date that they're meeting. So there's a lot of community members who are in peer support and for very good reason of tourism. But again, like Lisa Davis was asking, are there anybody who has opposition? And yes, there is as well. But it's to remember that our people have always been a people who are hospitable, the people who want to share their knowledge, but in a respectful way. And there's always a time and place to do each of those. So with that, I would like to go ahead and ask Leanne Campbell to go ahead and jump on board and share some of her experiences as far as helping manage the Coeur d'Alene Tribe's cultural tourism program. So Leanne, if you want to go ahead and jump on here, we would love to share some of your experiences and hear about them.
Okay, great. Thank you. Again, I've been working at the Coeur d'Alene Casino for the past year in cultural tourism, serving as a cultural tourism coordinator. The casino just celebrated its 26th anniversary. We're going on our 27th anniversary in March. And the overall goal of the Coeur d'Alene Casino Resort Hotel is to provide for the economic health, welfare, and development of a nation of people. And our tourism was created to to add to our gaming facility as another amenity. But as you were saying too, it's also one of those instances where we were paying attention to who is telling our story, and we realized that this is also an opportunity for us to be able to tell our own story from the Coeur d'Alene tribal perspective. Because for years, our history has always been told perhaps by the state or by the church or some other local communities without much tribal involvement, and this was an opportunity for us to get involved in how our story is told, and to be able to work with our communities here on the Coeur d'Alene Indian Reservation to help us in those tours. We also work with state parks. We have Hayburn State Park, which was established in 1908, and it has some really prime acreage right down along Lake Coeur d'Alene, and they try to leave it pristine and untouched as they can. But we offer hiking tours and kayaking and canoeing in tribal waters. And one of the other things that we try to focus on with that too is introducing the place names, the Coeur d'Alene tribal place names, because we our landscape had names, and we had events, and we had things that are places for certain purposes, like for gathering our foods, or maybe along the waterways. We have a place that's called Hindarup, which means a canoe landing, and it had those supplies that we needed for our canoes, because we were water people, and the primary way and our primary mode of transportation was by canoes. We also work with the Old Mission State Park. It's a state park, and it's located in Cataldo, Idaho, and it's one of the churches that the Coeur d'Alene tribe built, and it's actually the oldest standing building in the state of Idaho. And that one is also a state-run facility, but they do really well in partnering with the tribe and learn the narrative that we would like them to share. And they have really good hearts and really good minds, and when tribal members are present, they get a little nervous, and they want to make sure that they're getting this right. We try to be there and be present when those tours are happening, but our state park people are really stepping in to help us with this tourism, because we have the Old Mission State Park at Cataldo, but we also have a visitor center there that has an exhibit that opened up in 2011, and it's called Sacred Encounters, which goes over the history of the Coeur d'Alene tribe and our interaction with Catholicism, and how we intermesh those into the Coeur d'Alene tribe. But again, we do a lot of work with our communities. Like Stacia was saying, we have a ripple effect here at Coeur d'Alene in the businesses that we use to conduct our cultural tourism tours. One example is the bison ranch tour that the Coeur d'Alene tribe hosts. We bring them out into the landscape, into a working bison ranch, which is owned by a local non-native person, but he was someone that grew up here on the Coeur d'Alene Indian Reservation, and I went to high school with him. And I'm in my later 40s right now, and so he's been here and been a part of this community for a long time. But this is an opportunity for the Coeur d'Alene Casino to support his business and bring people there, and allow them to talk about the herd that they've been building for almost 20 years. And so it's just a really wonderful opportunity for us to work in those, work with our communities and work with those state parks, and to help tell our story. But again, with the Coeur d'Alene Casino, we added this as an amenity to our gaming facility, because not everybody likes to game. And so we have a wide variety of activities that we offer at the Coeur d'Alene Casino. Stacia was talking about the cultural dinner events, and we also do those at Coeur d'Alene, and we'll do a traditional meal. And so we'll have an MC that will talk about the history of the Coeur d'Alene tribe and our landscape, tell some of our stories. We'll bring dancers in, powwow dancers, and we'll share powwow songs, because that's something that's in that category of widely known. and we're not being inappropriate by sharing, powwow songs. And we have, some of our families that will come and dance, and they're very proud to be ambassadors of the Coeur d'Alene tribe, and to help us tell the story of our people. And we still have tribal members that will work on um, making traditional regalia, and some of these are hundreds of years old, and it gives the families the opportunity to talk about their beadwork and their grandmothers, their family history, and these are multi-generational people that are participating, and they get a chance to have a venison stew. They'll get a chance to have some salmon, and just like a huckleberry vinaigrette and some huckleberry desserts. But these are ones that are kind of commonly and widely known foods, but we try to share them in an appropriate way. Um, but I think we had to go through some adjustments too, to alter the wording to make sure that our people are comfortable with what we're doing. But we also work um, with our tours and offering, hiking tours, kayaking and canoeing, the bison ranch tours. We touch on our history as well. That was something that we had to focus on, some of our individual assets that the Coeur d'Alene tribe has, some of the beauty of our landscape that we want to share, parts of our history that really stands out for us that we really wanted to focus on. And then one of the other big draws that we have, we call them our tribal lifeways workshops, where we offer some workshops for beading and weaving, moccasin making, and folder cedar bark baskets. That they're miniature and they get made into necklaces. But some of those are also in the widely known area. And we try to be very careful about not exploiting the knowledge, the kind of internal tribal knowledge and cultural practices. So we try to really avoid getting ourselves into that. And we do have some tribal members that have also given us some opposition, some elders in our communities that feel like we're just trying to sell our culture to whoever has, the money for it. But it was just really important for us to be able to share our story from our perspective. And we do have a few that we try to work with, and um, comfort them and invite them into these workshops and ask for their participation. And with these Lifeways workshops, and actually even with our hiking tours and kayaking and canoeing and being on tribal waters, we have a lot of our neighboring tribes and tribal elders that will attend these workshops, and it kind of lets me know that I'm on the right track too when I'm doing this work, because I have some of our elders sitting right there with me and encouraging me and participating in these workshops. And so I kind of feel like we're on the right track with that.
Yeah, I agree, Leanne. I know for me, I got teary-eyed when you were talking about when, your elders come and join you on your activities and your events, and how that's, just another unspoken confirmation that your community gives you that you're on the right track. And so, you do get
It
very
is. So,
emotional sometimes because, I mean, going through and studying the history of my people, very intensely, with a microscope, you start to feel those traumas that your ancestors felt. And for a long time, I didn't understand what historical trauma was. And you start getting into something as serious as a tourism business, and there's a lot of things that you will recognize, and there's pinpoints internally that might hit you that you didn't know were there. But being able to manage those feelings and to understand where some of the opposition come from, man, we've endured a lot as Indigenous people. And it's so beautiful to be able to stand up in front of a group of 300, and say, but we are still here. And those things are just, and that's why
mhm.
we do it, as a representing our nation or as an entrepreneur. That's why we do it, is because we are still here. And to be able to utilize the women like Leanne and to work with Lynn and all other people across Indian country, through the IANTA. The IANTA program is wonderful in tourism. They're another great resource that you can utilize if you're thinking about or do have a tourism business running. And then I know for us, for Nez Perce Tourism, we try to utilize all of our Indian resources, not just our, historian and tourism related businesses, but, also our graphic designers, our Nez Perce writers, our Nez Perce photographers, um, anything that I can find are Nez Perce web developers. And if I can't find a Nez Perce, I'll go to a neighboring tribe. And if I can't find a neighboring tribe, I'll go into, a non-tribal person. But I try and make sure that we utilize our Nimipu people and our communities, and we're going to continue to build. And so, for folks who don't have a tourism business yet, if it's with their tribe or on your own, I can guarantee you're going to inspire, just like Leanne has me, and just like I have others to start their own tourism companies. So right now we offer, jet boat tours, we offer whitewater rafting, we offer historical site tours, dinner tours, powwow and adaptation tours, all these things that, I mean, we can customize a 3-day to a 3-week tour. But a lot of those things, for example, I work with non-tribal people to provide the operation of the jet boat tour. I work with non-tribal people to offer, some of my other services. But what I'm doing as an entrepreneur is I'm encouraging others. I'm writing new business plans. I'm already writing a new business plan for another company to start this summer. And so just being able to, and that's the thing too, is that if you'll inspire and you'll equip to say, man, if Stacia can do it, of all people, if Stacia can do it, I can do it too. And yes, you can. Yes, you can, young adult. Yes, you can, elder. Yes, you can, child. You can do it. And and with that obedience and business writing and planning and following up and respecting your community and your culture and your elders, and to be able to seamlessly navigate through the tribal and non-tribal community and to talk in front of people, really practice your public speaking and to really start feeling comfortable in your own skin. And like I said, when I first started, I'm thinking, I am the last person who is equipped. I'm not going to be able to do something like this, but that's not what my nation or God or my ancestors had in plan for me. So you can best bet that I'm trying at this 100%. I'm moving forward. We're going and going and going. And so again, I just thank you all for asking your questions. I would like to take these last, few minutes to answer any more questions anybody might have. And Lynn, if you wanted to recap on anything that you heard or anything you feel like Leanne or I can elaborate on a little further, by all means, please go ahead and jump in at any time. If anybody has any more questions, I would love to try and answer those at this time. We do have a link to resources at the bottom of your screen, the Nez Perce Tourism website, the IDRS Acorn Project website, and then also, I mentioned it earlier, is the American Indian Alaska Native Tourism Association, IANTA. But I do want to encourage each of you to go ahead and log into tomorrow's series as well. And then we will have 12 total covering cultural tourism. And it'll just give you such a great aspect on the work and the partnerships and the struggles and the obstacles and the strengths, everything that you can possibly imagine. I mean, I'm just pouring my heart out and being as honest as I can through these webinar series. And we're also inviting folks like, Leanne, Jaslyn, and Kermit to come and join us and tell us about what they've experienced. And so, cultural tourism is something it's real and it's alive and it's dynamic. And I encourage each of you to just start looking in your own areas and to start thinking of things that you think would work for your areas. And I have my information here, my email address, my cell phone number. I mean, I'm at your disposal. I want to help more nations to be able to share their story. And again, I would like to thank Lynn Wilson and the IDRS Acorn Project. I would like to thank Leanne Campbell. I know you're a very busy woman for joining us. And thank you to all the other nations who have seen this opportunity, not only as an economic driver for your communities, but as a way to preserve your language and your culture and your heritage. And, we can do that in a way that's respectful. So again, I'd like to say thank you, and I hope you all have a wonderful day.